Hi guys, and welcome to another episode of Kabir Considers. In this video, I'm going to react to what happens to Russian tanks after they're hit by Javelin missiles. Now, I believe that Javelin missiles are manufactured by both the UK and the USA, and they are extremely good at what they do. I think the unit cost for each one is like $215,000 or something like that. So, you know, like obviously not all the time can you equate the price of something to the quality of what it is, but you got to think that these things must pack one hell of a punch. And obviously a tank is often, you know, reinforced with several inches thick of steel or depleted uranium. So busting through all of that armor cannot be easy. So yeah, it's going to be interesting to see, you know, what makes these missiles so effective, you know, how they're designed, stuff like that, and just the damage they can do. It's going to be a very interesting video. Let's do it.
Hello everyone, and welcome back to the Insane Facts channel.
Wow.
In this video, you can see how a Ukrainian tank destroys enemy fortified positions in once peaceful houses. The enemy is entrenched in the buildings on the edge of the city of Bakhmut, and the tank is working directly on these positions. It is interesting that the tank can close to the enemy positions, and the enemy cannot hit the Ukrainian tank. Apparently, they don't have anti-tank missiles here.
I see.
The Russians are also trying to storm Ukrainian positions with tanks and armored vehicles. The main task of the tank is to destroy the enemy's stronghold.
I mean, like, you got to imagine the power of that projectile. That tank is probably 50 tons or something like that. And the fact that when it fires it, the whole tank is rocking backwards and forwards. Like the power.
So that the infantry can move and take up positions. This is a classic situation in this war, something that happens every day.
Crazy.
But thanks to American Javelin missiles and British law, Ukrainians easily destroy Russian tanks. The Javelin man-portable anti-tank missile system can be called a tank killer in the Ukrainian war. With their help, hundreds of tanks were destroyed and continue to be destroyed to this day.
Damn, look at the size of the explosion.
When Ukrainian infantryman has a Javelin in his hands, he is not afraid of any tank. It only takes a few seconds to lock onto a target and 1 second to press the start button. Further, the Javelin missile will cope with the target itself.
The way it speeds off.
Not a single tank could withstand a hit by this missile. Look how beautifully it destroys Russian tanks. Sometimes, the tank's turret flies up to tens of meters in height.
That's crazy.
And the tank is torn to pieces by the detonation of shells. Great footage for a Hollywood action movie.
I mean, it's just like, when are we going to see this conflict reach some kind of conclusion? Like, if we're not careful, this could genuinely just escalate and escalate and escalate into some kind of full-blown World War III. I really hope it doesn't, because I just don't see like how this ends. You know, like if the West continues to assist Ukraine in terms of weaponry and putting personnel on the ground, because I've heard that, you know, special forces, both US and UK, have been on the ground in the region for months now. I don't know whether they're fighting or if they're just instructing the Ukrainians on how to use the weapons. But yeah, they've been on the ground for a while. And the Russians, I don't think they're going to stop anytime soon, because I think that would be probably the end for Putin, I guess. Because what would be gained? Like, he would have lost all of these Russian soldiers with nothing really gained. Yeah, I don't know. How do you guys think this ends?
The Ukrainian army uses its tanks only when absolutely necessary, saving them for counter-offensive operations. Tanks are needed to break through enemy defenses. On defense, they're not so useful. Therefore, Ukrainian troops meet Russian tanks on the battlefield with Javelin missiles. They are cheaper than a tank and more effective in defense. Tanks can be ambushed and easily destroyed.
Because they're slow.
The cost of one Javelin is approximately $100,000.
Interesting. I thought it was more expensive than that. Or perhaps the $215,000 I've heard is with the launch system as well.
While the cost of a T-72 tank is at least $3 million. Favorable exchange for Ukraine. Russian tanks have no way to defend against Javelins or NLAW.
Yeah.
It's a good example of how a tank's reactive armor turns out to be useless. A Javelin missile hits a moving Russian tank on the battlefield. The dynamic protection worked, but despite this, the tank was damaged and caught fire. The tank driver continued to move to hide behind the trees, but soon he had to run away, leaving the tank, which later exploded from the detonation of ammunition.
Damn. Because yeah, how would a tank defend against that? I guess the only thing it could really do is try and intercept it with one of its own weapons while it's en route towards it. Because unless you stick several 100 tons worth of armor around the tank, or at least maybe double it in terms of its weight and stuff, how are you gonna, you can't really do anything against it.
The anti-cumulative grills do not help the tanks either. Before the invasion of Ukraine, the Russians equipped almost all of their tanks with such grills and fixed them above the tower. They hoped that the bars would somehow neutralize the effect of Javelin or NLAW missiles, which hit the tank with cumulative jets. But these grills also turned out to be useless. The internet is full of photos of destroyed tanks with grills above the tower. Not only tanks, but any armored vehicles can be easily destroyed by the Javelin missile. Here is a soldier of the Ukrainian army destroying a Russian armored personnel carrier from an ambush, being at close range. Very nice hits.
Wow.
But here is another case, also a hit from an ambush.
They're just getting destroyed.
Near Ugledar, Russian tanks hit the mine roads. A lot of armored vehicles were destroyed by mines. The New York Times called it the most disastrous Russian tank operation of the entire war. More than 150 units of various armored vehicles were destroyed.
Yeah, I've heard Russia is running seriously low on tanks. They had their victory parade, their annual victory parade, I think it was like a few weeks ago, and usually they would have several tanks on display, you know, some aircraft on display as a sort of show of like might and stuff. But apparently they only had one tank on display that used to be in a museum. Like it dates from like World War II or something like that. So yeah, I don't know how much longer really Russia can fight this war.
The main approaches to the city of Ugledar were mined. A lot of armored vehicles were also destroyed by artillery, drones, and Javelin missiles. After that, the Russians sent forward a special mine-clearing vehicle, the UR-77 Meteorit. But this machine was hit, most likely by a Javelin missile from an ambush. And then it caught fire and exploded. UR-77 carries special ammunition, which detonated. The explosion was very spectacular. This machine uses ammo that creates enhanced shock waves. Look as an example the work of this machine in Mariupol last year. A special projectile is thrown to the desired distance and creates a strong shock wave. From strong pressure, all mines in this area explode. After that, infantry and armored vehicles can move freely there. But in our case, Ukrainian soldiers somehow hit this vehicle before it even had time to do its job. And another attempt at the Russian defense failed again. There is already well-known video footage from Mariupol.
I remember hearing that Putin thought that the special operation would only take 3 days to complete. Like, did he really not see Western intervention as likely? Like, because to me, that just seems just bizarre, like a massive critical oversight. Like, he thought that he would just go into Ukraine and like pretty much take Ukraine. Is that what he thought would happen? Like, did he expect the war to go in this way? And if none of his generals told him that that was likely, I mean, they failed him big time.
Where supposedly a Javelin missile cannot hit a Russian T-72 tank. This case has already been discussed by many military experts. First, to be precise, this is not a Javelin, but an NLAW missile. Secondly, the rocket was launched from too close a distance, so it turned out to be ineffective. The minimum effective distance of an NLAW missile is over 100 meters.
I see, at least
but when the target is too close, the missile's warhead does not activate. This is done primarily for the safety of the one who launches the rocket. This means that any weapon must be used correctly. In this case, it would be more appropriate to use the Soviet RPG-7 anti-tank grenade launcher. When used correctly, the Javelin is guaranteed to destroy any Russian tank. as seen in these well-known video footage.
Honestly, I just feel so bad for the young men, and I don't know if there's women fighting, but I think it's predominantly young men who, are just being sent to their deaths, at the behest of, people who aren't going to see a day of combat. Like, it's actually really sick to me that I'm sure a lot of people don't want to fight, but their lives are being lost in huge numbers. Like, their whole family's devastated. Like, imagine a family's only got one kid. That kid gets sent off to fight, gets killed, It's really tragic.
The Javelin inflicts terrible damage on tanks, turning them into scrap metal. Such tanks are no longer subject to restoration. Sometimes, tanks are completely torn to pieces. According to some statements by the Ukrainian military, the Javelin can even be used to destroy low-flying helicopters. We have one such accident recorded on video. Unfortunately, we cannot confirm that it was a Javelin missile. It is impossible to understand which missile shot down the helicopter. We know that the Ukrainian army uses more suitable weapons for this purpose, such as the British Star Streak and the American Stinger. Ukrainians also use the Soviet SA-18 Grouse complex. You can see him in action in this video. But we also know that the Ukrainian military is very resourceful, and therefore is not surprising if they shoot down helicopters with a Javelin missile. At the very beginning of the Russian invasion of Ukraine, Javelin missiles played a decisive role. It is good that the Western allies managed to put them up, even before the invasion. Then the Russians advanced to Kiev in long columns, and the Ukrainian soldiers destroyed these columns for an ambush. The Russians lost hundreds and hundreds of units from various military armored vehicles. They were forced to recognize the Javelin missile system as an ingenious military invention due to its effectiveness and ease of use. The Javelin system consists of two components, the missile and the launch unit. The missile is a fire-and-forget weapon.
I wonder how much it weighs. It looks like a considerable, if I had to guess around 20 kg, so maybe 50 pounds, something like that.
Weapon that uses an imaging infrared seeker to track and engage the targets. The complex is equipped with a display screen and a joystick that allow the operator to guide the missile to the target. The Javelin missile has a range of up to 2.5 kilometers and can penetrate up to 600 millimeters of armor.
Okay, and 100 millimeters. Wow. That's incredible.
It is designed to engage both stationary and moving targets, including those in urban environments. The missile can be fired from a variety of positions, including from the prone position or from behind cover.
It's an impressive weapon, you have to say.
If you liked today's episode
Very
and wanting to
impressive.
continue making
Very, very impressive. Like, the way and the ease in which those missiles destroy these tanks, it's incredible. Because, a tank, I was shocked to realize that the average tank these days weighs like 50 tons. 50 tons and, often is covered in depleted uranium. Uranium is such a dense and heavy metal, So for these missiles, which don't look that big, they look about yay long and maybe about this wide in terms of its girth. They're just shredding these things. It sent, the roof of the tank 50 meters in the air. Ridiculous power, amazing design. But yeah, it just really reinforces the desire for me in any way, for this conflict to come to some kind of resolution. Because the longer and longer it goes on, obviously, the more and more people that are going to lose their lives. And, there's the danger of this escalating into something even worse. But just an awful state of affairs. Thanks for watching, guys, and I'll see you in the next one.